is Ms. Jackson, and I'm the professional school counselor. Today's topic is on grading and reporting. So the AP procedure that I'm referencing is called 5121, Grading and Reporting for Elementary Schools, Early Childhood through Grade 5. This can be found on the Prince George's County website. So the first thing I want to address is that the marking period ends October 31st, and report cards will be released sometime in November. When you receive the report card, you want to be able to understand how your students are graded and the types of things that you will find on the report card. So grading, you should have received a syllabus for the course within the first 10 days of school. You do have a right to ask for a copy so you can kind of keep up with the curriculum for the year. With kindergarten and grade 1, the first score they can receive is a PR. This means they are proficient, and this means that your child can demonstrate the indicator independently. The next grade is IP, meaning in process. That means your child can reliably demonstrate the indicator. EM stands for emerging, and this means they can demonstrate the indicator with assistance. ND means they need development, and the child does not demonstrate the indicator at all. So the next grade we'll talk about are grades 2 through 5. So traditional report cards, you're typically looking for a letter grade. And so an A means excellent progress at the level of instruction indicated. And the numbers that are associated with A's would be 90% to 100%. The next letter grade is B, and this means that the student is above average progress at the level of instruction indicated. The number range associated with a B would be 80% to 89%. The next letter grade would be a C, meaning that the student is average and they're progressing at the level of instruction indicated, meaning the number associated would be 70 to 79%. A D. The next letter is D, meaning your child is showing below average progress at the level of instruction, associated with a 60% to 69%. If a student receives a letter grade of E, that means they produced unsatisfactory progress at the level of instruction, and E means they failed, and this means they have below a 60%. An I indicates it's incomplete, and the I grade may only be used for elementary students who have been lawfully absent from school and have not had an opportunity to complete the work. Some courses or subjects will receive a pass or fail, meaning a P, meaning it will be a credit-bearing class, or an F, meaning it's not credit-bearing at all. And then the last area is your reading level. So AB indicates they are above grade level, OG means they are on grade level, and BL means they are below grade level. So the next topic in grading and reporting are grading categories. Grading categories include independent assignments, classwork, and assessments. For all of the categories, teachers should be making a connection to previous or current content standards and then provide feedback that is prompt, specific, understandable to the student, and formed to allow for self-adjustment on the student's part. Okay? So let's dig into some of the characteristics of each of those types of categories. So the first category is independent assignments. So independent assignments should have these characteristics. They should be completed independently and separate from the teacher. This gives the student an opportunity to practice. It should be aligned to a previously taught skill or concept and used for review, practice, or enrichment. In elementary school, no assignments will be required for submission on Mondays or on the day following school being closed. So if we're off on Wednesday, you cannot expect an assignment to be turned in on Thursday. That's just what it is. Classwork. Classwork is intended to be completed with the teacher, available to observe, answer questions, and interact with the student while completing the work. Classwork is intended to involve interaction among students with their peers, and majority of the assignment should be completed in class. Now, classwork can be completed during or outside of school hours. The last segment are assessments. Assessments are intended to measure the successful learning or mastery of a set of standards or skills. It's intended to be completed with or without teacher observation, and it's intended to allow the student to demonstrate mastery in various modalities and formats. Assessments are also differentiated so that all students can experience success and work independently. So for some of my younger students, there are other methods to provide assessments. For spelling tests, a student may not be able to write, therefore their answers may be marked wrong, but the student may be able to be verbally assessed to determine that they do understand how to spell the words that were assigned to them the week before. You have to speak up and inquire with the classroom teacher to see if these things are happening or if it is possible that the student receive an alternative form of an assessment. So the grade book. If your student has this class or subject 3 to 5 times per week, meaning they go every day or every other day, then that student should be receiving 2 graded items per week. If they only attend the class 1 to 2 times per week, meaning once a week, like Tuesday and Thursdays, then they only are required to put 1 grade into the grade book. Teachers and schools are required to maintain records in the electronic grade books, and when students submit work, it's a best practice to provide the student with feedback or grade within 10 days. Now, we all need a little bit of grace. We all are human, and sometimes that's not possible. So if you don't receive your work in 10 days, just check in with the teacher, follow up and let them know that you are looking for your work so you can review it. You may request 1 additional opportunity to improve assessment scores, activities, or assignments. There is a criteria that has to be met in order for you to be able to do this. So number 1, you have to make sure the original assignment has been completed by the original due date. The student has to participate in a reteaching within 5 days of receiving the original graded assignment. They also have to return the new one within 10 days. The original has a C, and when the student retests, they end up getting a D, they will keep the C on record. But if the retest, he received a B, then the B will be on record. Now, the only way this rule doesn't apply is if the teachers have communicated that reassessments will not be allowed, okay? So, something that you should be mindful of, if your student is unexcused and absent, the teacher is not required to give them work. The good news is many teachers, especially in elementary school, provide work or they excuse them from the assignments, but that's if you have a nice teacher. They're not required to provide makeup work. If a student does receive makeup work, they're allowed to turn in makeup work up to the 5th school day prior to the end of the quarter. So that would have been last week if the end of the quarter is October 31st. For students in grades 2 through 5, they should always receive a minimum grade of 50% for assignments or assessments when a student attempted to complete the entire assignment and made a good faith effort in displaying persistence, striving for accuracy, time on task, or trying alternative methods to solve a problem. The only way your student should come home with a 0 on an assignment is if the student does no work or they didn't attempt it at all. That's the only way they should receive a 0. If you see a 0 on something that you see they were scribbling, they were doodling on, email the teacher, I object, okay? You don't have to be that dramatic, but you definitely can challenge the grade. Okay, so the other thing with the zeros, there are some details you need to know about. If your student is absent, they can and most likely will get a 0 if it's unexcused. If your student is unlawfully absent, they're absolutely getting a 0. You do not want to miss a test on a day and you're unlawfully absent. You know, the rating scales are right there. Tests are worth like 40% in a class. Okay? So think of it this way. If you have, for students with disabilities and have IEPs or receive special education services, if your student is in jeopardy of failing, an IEP meeting should be scheduled so the case manager and team can discuss the IEP goals set for the student and to make sure that those things are appropriate. At no point should your student, regardless of disability or not, have a failing grade and you shouldn't make contact with the school. So, report cards. Report cards for elementary students will be distributed on a quarterly or 9-week basis. So typically, if you look at the calendar, every quarter is about 44 to 46 days long. All right? Pre-kindergarten students receive report cards twice per year. The report cards contain work samples to include a self-portrait, name sampling, writing samples, and samples in an assessment report for pre-K students. All right? Teachers must submit report cards to principals for review and approval prior to a copy of the child's report card being maintained in the cumulative folder. Please be mindful your student must be enrolled for at least 21 days before they can receive a report card. If your child has only been enrolled for 10 days and the end of the quarter is here, then you should be expecting to see at least a progress report from the previous school. All right, let's talk about the G, the P, the GPAs. It's the grade, point average, hey, point average, hey, point average. So grades 2 through 5. A 4.0 means your baby is the bomb. That's an A. Give me A, town, stump. If they have a 3.0, that's a B average. We talked about that a little earlier in the video. You might want to rewind to know where your baby is with the grade point average. 2.0 is a C. 1.0 is a D. 0.0 is an E. Okay? Students that meet the criteria for principal's honor roll have a 4.0. A-town stump all over the report card. A student that meets honor roll needs to have at least a 3.0 GPA or higher. So 4.0 and above is principal's honor roll, meaning Mr. gives special recognition to students on principal's honor roll. They get ice cream socials, pizza parties, little pendants, t-shirts, confetti when they walk across the stage. It's a whole big deal. Strive for 4.0. Now, if you get a 3.0 or above, we're going to shout you out during honor roll. We're going to shuffle you along. We'll give you a certificate. There's no pizza and there's no ice cream. It's almost like you did great, but you really need to do better, champ, okay? We are not celebrating mediocre. When I was growing up, my dad would pay for A's and B's, but anything below that might get me a little consequence at home, okay? Old school people know what a consequence at home is. All right. So this is something that you need to be mindful of. If your student comes home with a failing grade or a D or an E on the report card, you need to be reaching out to the teacher and you should be requesting that meeting will include you, the teacher, the counselor, and potentially other specialists or administrators to help support putting strategies and interventions in place to make sure that your child improves or progresses from that grade between when you receive the report card and when they receive the next one. So parent conferences are encouraged. Absolutely reach out to the teacher or the counselor or the administrator to request a conference. And you can request that the teacher justify the grade that they provided your student. They should be able to be transparent with the grade book as well as provide work samples. A good rule of thumb is to keep all of the work that's returned home so you can stay on top of what has been submitted and then what your student what type of feedback they're receiving on their assignments that are being. So last but not least, procedures for grade appeal authorizations or grade changes. Please refer to Administrative Procedure 5116. If you are to appeal the grade, you must put it in writing within 5 school days of the release of the report cards. There is a form that has to be submitted, and sometimes there are a series of meetings that must take place. So as soon as you get the report card, if you're not happy with it, you need to put that in writing. You need to say that you're interested in a grade change, and you really need to brush up on your Administrative Procedure 5116. Okay? We are now at the end of the administrative procedure, and we are now wrapping up with monitoring and compliance. I am not interested in reviewing this information with you, but you are welcome to dig into it online. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me or drop a comment below. Thank you for joining me for office hours. I hope to see you soon.